Now surprisingly, NFL's Greatest was not the only NFL weirdness hybrid of FMV that existed on the Sega CD. There was one other game, but it wasn't made by Sega like the last one. This was actually made by Philips and published by their little subsidiary Capdisc. Weirdly enough, this game did appear on the Philips CDI, and it's the only game from that company and from Philips that appeared on the Sega CD, which begs the question, why? At the time, the game was on the Philips CDI, why not leave it exclusive? But that's neither here nor there. The game in question is NFL Football Trivia Challenge. Now, you may be wondering, could this game be any worse than NFL's Greatest? The question is it actually the worst game on the Sega CD? Well, I think the best way to answer that question initially is there's literally only 2 videos about this game on YouTube currently. A minute and 27 second intro video, and then a random smattering of parts of the gameplay. Just uninterrupted gameplay with no talking. That should speak volumes for how many people care and how good the game was. But we're gonna get to the bottom of why that's the case anyways, because someone's gotta do it, right? They're probably not wrong either. To begin with, the game has quite a bit of load times, which you'll notice immediately when starting up, because every menu option takes long times to load, which, to be fair, is par for the course with the Sega CD, but not usually in the menus. This is probably due to loading audio from the game commentators, which is kind of unnecessary for the menus, but whatever.
Well, that's a tough one, but it's so easy to choose a team.
You just click on a helmet.
Now, the biggest red flag in this game is actually right at the beginning in 2 things. One, the menus are cumbersome for no good reason. You see, instead of having a normal just top-down menu, you select icons. The jerseys represent difficulty, the helmets represent teams, which is fine. You can go to the showers and quit the game, which does really nothing but go back to the title screen. You can click the first aid for help, which, makes sense, but why would you need it? And if you click to the right to exit out, you'll go onto the field and play the game. Now, it's once you get to the game that things get really weird. You see, I booted up the game and nothing happened. I couldn't control anything. So, assuming that it might have been a glitch, I reset the system and, went to start a new game up again. And still nothing. And then, weirdly enough, I tried using controller 2, and it worked. And then it dawned on me. This is a 2-player game only. The box lies. It literally says 1 to 2 players, but realistically, unless you want to play with 2 controllers and be really reminded of how lonely you are, this game is a 2-player game only. Of course, it's not like this game would have really been, that much better if it hadn't already straight out lied to me, because the game itself is really not that great to begin with. So, the idea of the game is really quite simple. You answer football-related trivia questions, and if you get enough right before being forced to punt or try for a field goal, you score a touchdown, and each question asked counts as 1 minute on the play clock for each quarter, roughly translating to 40 questions. You have 20 seconds to answer a question, and the quicker you answer, the more yards you get if you get it right. That's it. I was harsh on NFL's Greatest, but at least that was full of actual archival footage and had some slightly better productions, if you can believe it. This game barely contains any actual FMV, and they didn't even do anything dynamic with the game. It could have allowed for you to make the play calls that allow for easier or harder questions depending on how many yards the play would get, or different styles of questions for different types of plays. This is basic stuff, but I want you to understand just how simplistic and little effort was put into this game. If you remember back to part 1, we talked about World Cup 94, and that had a trivia game that worked better because it was a bonus feature that was, included with a real game, and actually allowed for single-player play, unlike this game that lies to you. With this, it's just boring question after boring question with way too much commentary from famous commentators Pat Summerall and Tom Brookshire, which would be a nice touch if any of the rest of the game actually had anything worthwhile to add to the world. Of course, they also overdo the commentary so much to make up for the fact that everything else in the game is so lackluster and boring and bland that it takes a long time to load everything and it gets really annoying really quick.
They're lining up in kicking formation. Looks like they're going to try for a 3-pointer.
I'm being honest when I say that this is the worst game and worst experience one person can have on the Sega CD. And having basically every game ever released for the system, I'm pretty confident in saying this. I don't even recommend this to diehard fans of sports or the Sega CD. You could really just save some money and grab a trivia board game instead. Jeez. The NFL really didn't have a good run on the Sega CD, did they?
It was off to the right time. I'm sure the kicker's disappointed with that effort.
Hey guys, thanks for joining me again for another one of the Sports Week videos. I'm really sorry the first two were kind of boring, but they are important and they were kind of different from everything else that was out of the time for sports games. Of course, luckily for you guys, tomorrow will be one of the FMV Digital Pictures games called Prize Fighter, which I assure you is a much more interesting episode. If you want to wash the taste of that out of your mouth, why not check out one of my Sega Importorium videos, like the one on Tokameki Memorial, one of the most influential video games that ever came out of Japan and never actually came to America. And as always, if you liked the video, feel free to like, subscribe, leave a comment, or anything else. It really means a lot to me when you do, and I know I say that every time, but it really, really does. And until tomorrow, thanks again, and we'll see you there.